Okay, if we think about dosing, so it's like power and time, or are there other parameters? Um, how do you, when you're doing an experiment, how do you, I guess, calculate what dose you will use?
That's a terribly good question. And it's also an extremely demanding question
Hmm.
because with the red light research, we have too many variables. So we can't isolate one variable very easily on its own. You have wavelength, you have energy, you have time, and
Hmm.
you have time of day because your response to red light changes at different times of the day. So, how do we manage that? Well, I don't have access to enough subjects to pull that one apart. We've done a lot of experiments on animals. And what you find in this is highly conserved in evolution. What you find in a fly, a bumblebee, or a human is exactly the same in terms of red light metrics. So we know that if you go below around 1 minute, 1 minute 15 seconds is the break point. If you give red light at any energy below that time period, nothing will happen. And it's not like aspirin. Take 5 aspirin and your headache will go away quicker than if you take 1 aspirin. It is something that we now know is a switch. When you do something, you turn the switch that improves mitochondrial function, and that switch, once you've turned it, will last 5 days. Again, doesn't matter if you're a fly, a human, whatever. Now, physiologists find this very difficult because in
Hmm.
physiology, there aren't a lot of switches. There are a lot of dose relationships. So when we've done work on aging people and aging eyes, and we've managed to improve vision, we say to people 3 minutes in the morning. We know 3 minutes is an overkill completely. But then if you've got someone that tends to chisel things away, so you say to them, oh, it's 1 minute and 15 seconds, someone's going to do a minute. Someone's going to chisel it away. And so for that reason, we've gone over the top and we say, do it for 3 minutes. Now, when this scenario came out, people had a fixed energy for using this, and it was 40 milliwatts per centimeter squared. Bit bright.
Hmm.
So what we did do is we started reducing that and still looking for an effect. And so we had a project in Moorfields Eye Hospital where we took some people and we just reduced the energy. And so we can now deliver an effective dose. Again, remember, it's a switch at a much lower energy and get as good a physiological effect as if we give high energy. So we can now deliver something that is very comfortable. And no one's going to. We've got clinical trials with young children. We've got trials with older people, and they tolerate it very, very easily. We're down to about 5 milliwatts per centimeter squared, which is, if you don't know what that looks like, it's a relatively dim bicycle light.
Right.
But it's not a bicycle light because the wavelength's longer. But that's what
Hmm.
we're really talking about. We're talking about something which is very comfortable.
Interesting. Now, but this is for mitochondria. This is for helping mitochondria, right? I
Yeah.
mean, because people use red lights for inflammation and many other things, right? Which we won't talk about, but that may have a different dose response. With
It may do. Now, red light for inflammation,
hmm,
we think has been well, we know it's been used for ages. Vets use it very regularly on racehorses. I spent a lot of time talking to vets at one point. If you've got a very expensive racehorse, you want to look after its muscles. If it's got muscle strain, then you really want to pay attention to it. Um, I strongly suspect the metrics are very similar because what runs inflammation is mitochondria. Mitochondria have a very, very strong influence over inflammation. So if we take an old animal, let's say an old mouse, the eye burns more energy than any other part of your body. It ages faster than any other part of your body, and you start to get systemic inflammation in the back of the retina. When we give red light, which affects the mitochondria in the retina, inflammation goes down. It's very clear. Lots of separate metrics we've used. The mitochondria, when they're unhappy, drive inflammation. When ATP production goes down, something called reactive oxygen species, ROS, goes up. Now, ROS, we can think about ROS as, I think about mitochondria as a battery. When the battery is running well, it produces ATP. When the battery's not running very well, it produces more ROS, and that's like a battery leaking acid. And when it does that, inflammation starts to be driven. So we know red light reduces ROS, increases ATP, and when we look at a whole range of inflammatory markers, they go down. Now, some go down a lot, some go down a little, but there is a fundamental relationship between light and mitochondria, and it doesn't matter what animal model you do it in, and I don't think it makes that much difference which tissue you use. If you use a tissue that doesn't have much in the way of mitochondria in it, a tendon, the effect is much more reduced.
Right. Interesting. How did these people do it every day? You said the effect lasted 5 days. When they were doing the eye, is it every day?
Yeah, it lasts 5 days no matter what you do. We are at 5 days is a very, very difficult kind of concept to get over. If you're saying to an elderly person, do this every 5 days, they lose track. They lose track. Now, was it a Monday when I did that last, or was it a Tuesday? And is that 5 days or 4 days or 3 days? We tend to say to people, just do it daily. Build it into your routine. There is absolutely no harm in doing it daily. But if you sit there and you do it daily and you sit in front of, your red light for an hour, the whole thing falls apart. It's relatively ineffective. So you go past some point of efficiency. The best thing, without any doubt, is 3 minutes. Build it into your life. Do it when you're making your coffee in the morning, when you're listening to the news, which people seem to do very, very easily. Do it daily if you can't remember what 5 days is. And look, I'm not young. I don't remember what 5 days is. So when I come into my office, I cycle to work, I get into work, I start changing out of my cycle gear, and I just turn a big red light on that bounces light off a wall. And that is what I do. And there are a few days when I miss it for one reason or another, but I probably do it 3 days a week, And if you miss it, if you miss something, it's not the end of the world. It's just got to be a bit of a pattern you build into your life.